Welcome to Debate Combats, where sharp minds spar and cooler heads win. Tonight's motion asks whether large corporations in the polar regions should adopt permanent, industry-led self-governance codes that require funding and protecting Arctic Indigenous languages and cultures as a condition for doing business. We are talking shipping routes, mining, tourism, research logistics, and the social license to operate in places where mistakes echo for generations. The affirmative belongs to the conservative team, arguing that durable, voluntary industry rules can safeguard culture and commerce at the same time. The negative belongs to the progressive team, arguing that self-policing is not enough and that only binding law can do the job. Ground rules are simple, one sentence per turn, say it clearly, and keep it civil. Affirmative, your opening case please.
Our case is simple. Permanent industry codes are faster to implement, easier to update, and can hardwire cultural protection into everyday business practice.
Think of a standing fund, where a slice of every voyage, every ton, or every tourist ticket pays directly for language schools, cultural archives, and interpreters on board.
Industry knows the workflows, so it can embed culture checks at the permit desk, the dock, the drill pad, and the hiring gate.
A code can require that project leads learn basic greetings and protocols in local languages before any site meeting, which signals respect and prevents avoidable harm.
Permanent means the support does not vanish when commodity prices dip, because the obligation rides with membership in the industry body.
It also means continuity for teachers and elders, since predictable funding lets them plan multi-year programs rather than patchwork workshops.
Self-governance scales across borders faster than treaties, which matters in the Arctic, where ships cross jurisdictions in a day.
When companies own the standard, peer pressure and reputation do the work that fines often fail to do.
Investors increasingly screen for social risk, so a recognized culture code can cut capital costs and reduce delays from protests or litigation.
That is not charity, that is risk management that pays for itself when a season starts on time.
The code can include local language media quotas for safety briefings, incident reports, and public updates, so information flows to communities first.
It can also set transparent dashboards that show how many cultural liaisons were hired, how many classes were funded, and how many students graduated.
Because this is industry-led, the rules can be tailored for ice pilots, fuel handling, wildlife windows, and sacred site buffers without waiting years for parliaments.
Speed matters in a warming Arctic, and every season without safeguards risks erasing words, songs, and place names.
Finally, people trust what they help build, so the code should grant Indigenous representatives voting seats and vetoes on cultural provisions.
When the people most affected can block weak rules, the standard gains legitimacy, and that legitimacy keeps the doors open when crises hit.
Thank you, affirmative, crisp and focused as promised. Negative, the floor is yours for the opening case.
Self-governance sounds tidy, but rights are not a tip jar, so only binding law can guarantee cultural protection when profits clash with principle.
History tells us that voluntary promises melt faster than sea ice when schedules slip, storms roll in, or shareholders grumble.
A permanent code without enforcement is permanent window dressing, because membership badges are not the same as legal duties.
Ask any community that waited for a company town hall, only to find the mic cut when questions got hard.
Language rights connect to land, education, and consultation, which require public authority, due process, and courts, not club rules.
If a child loses classroom hours because a company delayed funds, you cannot appeal to a trade association for damages.
Treaties, statutes, and mandatory licensing conditions can tie cultural funding to measurable obligations with penalties for non-compliance.
Those penalties matter, because fines make accountants pay attention, while peer pressure fades when a blockbuster quarter arrives.
Cross-border speed is a red herring, since modern agreements can be mirrored by regulators and port states that already inspect ships.
Community vetoes inside an industry group are tokens if the group can rewrite bylaws or quietly sideline dissenters.
Real legitimacy comes from free, prior, and informed consent, supervised by governments and courts, not by the very firms seeking approval.
A classroom paid by a company can close with a budget cut, but a classroom funded by law must be kept open, and that stability saves languages.
Dashboards are nice, Yet without public audit power and whistleblower protections, they are curated theater for investor decks.
When tourists surge or shipping lanes expand, only mandatory caps, protected areas and statutory buffers will shield sacred sites.
If corporations truly support culture, they should welcome enforceable rules, since good actors benefit when bad actors cannot undercut them.
In short, let industry consult, innovate and assist, but let the law decide the flaw, because human rights are not a loyalty program.
Strong start from the negative, clear on accountability and teeth. We will now pivot to evidence and examples in the crossfire after a brief reset of the state. Affirmative, you have the lane and keep it sharp.
The negative says rights need law. Yet while legislatures debate, our code can deliver classrooms, guides, and archives before one winter ends. We propose a standing levy per ton shipped and per tourist berth, ring-fenced by contract, audited by third parties, and published monthly. Because the levy travels with cargo and tickets, the money flows even when a single firm exits, which ends the stop-start cycle that kills programs. Port state controls already check safety lists, so adding a culture code certificate is feasible, measurable, and quicker than a treaty round. When communities see steady funds and mandatory interpreters, consultation becomes dialogue rather than theater, and that reduces conflict risk. Investors reward fewer delays and fewer protests, which lowers capital costs, and that financial logic anchors the program through downturns. Our code creates a permanent Indigenous culture board with voting rights on the cultural chapters, and membership is contingent on their sign-off. If you want teeth, reputational markets bite faster than courts on short Arctic seasons, because missing a window means millions in idle assets.
Negative, your side to answer the charge.
A levy without law is a promise that buckles under pressure, because the day the ice closes early, the board votes to protect cash, not culture. Peer pressure is cheap to ignore when a rival undercuts by skipping the code, so only a legal floor stops a race to the bottom. Audits are fine, yet without regulators to compel corrective action, you simply collect glossy reports that no one enforces.
Negative, continue with your spear point.
Self-regulation asks the fox to weigh the hens, so call it what it is, a brand exercise that withers when margins thin. Permanent boards inside industry are not courts, and a veto inside a club is a veto that the club can redefine by bylaws when it becomes inconvenient. Culture rights are human rights bound to land and education, and those belong under public law with remedies, not under private badges. If the code is truly strong, then write it into licenses and statutes, and if you refuse that, your confidence is costume, not commitment.
Affirmative, make your reply tight.
Licenses can and should reference the code, but writing every detail into law freezes innovation, while our framework updates on each season's lessons. Courts move on calendars, ice moves on winds, so a code that ships update across fleets in weeks is the tool you want in a changing Arctic. We solve the undercut problem by tying port access, insurance preferential rates, and charterer requirements to code compliance, which builds a wall of incentives.
Negative, assemble a tandem and press your case.
Leader for the negative here, and the fault line is accountability, because private compacts cannot impose proportionate sanctions that match the harm.
Support enters, and the lived harm is language loss, grief, and broken trust, which are never priced correctly by a committee counting containers.
You claim investor discipline, yet the largest delays historically vanish when regulators issue stop work orders, not when trade groups scold members.
You speak of dashboards, but people do not speak graphs, so communities need guarantees in their own languages with avenues to sue and to win.
A permanent legal duty to fund schools creates long-horizon hiring for teachers, while a code tied to cargo volumes collapses with freight recessions.
Culture is not a seasonal line item. It is memory and identity, and only binding guarantees can hold it steady when world prices crash.
Affirmative, 2 voices now, and keep it crisp.
Lead for the affirmative, and we fix accountability by pre-committing to escrowed funds, community sign-offs, and independent monitors with public feeds.
Support on metrics, and we add trigger clauses that raise per-ton levies when harm indicators spike, which builds automatic responses rather than apologies.
Self-governance is not self-worship, it is structured duty with consequences, including suspension from ports and insurers when firms shirk.
Because underwriters hate fuzzy risk, a recognized culture code will cut premiums for compliant fleets and raise them for free riders, which shapes behavior fast.
Your stop work orders arrive after harm occurs, while our embedded culture checks flag risks at pre-sale, pre-drill, and pre-tour, which is prevention, not theater.
We align incentives so that crews, guides, and managers are rewarded for language training and compliance, which turns values into routines.
Negative bench. Your turn to defend with answer and a little edge.
Answer first, and escrows do not solve power asymmetry, because the payer still writes the rules unless the state sets the terms and polices them.
Edge lands here. And if your code is so noble, why fear courtrooms, subpoenas, and penalties that bite? Because sunlight should not scare the righteous.
Even insurers follow regulation, so let the law define cultural harm and remedies, then premiums will mirror real accountability rather than curated metrics.
And while you speak of routines, history shows routines drift without watchdogs with badges, so no badge, no trust.
Affirmative. Your defense with a reply and a cool diagnosis.
Reply first, and we welcome regulators, but waiting for perfect statutes stalls urgent work, so we build the bridge now and let law pave it later.
Diagnosis follows, and the negative assumes only courts can deter, yet ports, buyers, rating agencies, and insurers can sanction faster than dockets.
Our culture board embeds elders and linguists who can halt operations under the code, which gives communities a break that runs on days, not years.
Weakness in your model is brittleness, because a single election can roll back a statute, while multi-stakeholder codes persist across cycles.
Judges, mid-round temperature check, please.
At this moment, I lean negative, because enforceable remedies matter, but I applaud the affirmative for designing specific levers beyond slogans. The affirmative shines when it ties port access and insurance to culture outcomes, and the negative stumbles when it paints all self-governance as mere perfume. Keep pushing concrete mechanisms on both sides, and surprise me with how you would protect a classroom when freight plummets.
I lean affirmative on speed and practicality, yet I find your escrow triggers underdeveloped, while the negative still owes us a realistic enforcement pipeline in remote ice. The affirmative strength is prevention embedded in operations, and the negative weakness is trusting slow law to beat fast weather. Bring me costed timelines and fallback plans, and you will earn my full confidence.
I am narrowly with the negative because I crave bite marks, not warning labels, though I love the affirmative's incentive architecture. The negative excels when it links rights to due process, and the affirmative falters when it waves away free riders with vague reputational magic. Show me how a teenager in a coastal village hears her language in school next spring, and I will move my vote without shame.
Round 2 begins. Fresh angles, please, and negative you lead.
Here is a new angle. Climate shocks will force triage, so without statutory earmarks, culture funds will be raided for emergency logistics. Your code cannot compel banks to release escrow during a crisis, but a law can mandate protected corridors for cultural budgets even under disaster orders.
Affirmative. One voice for defense now.
Escrows can be structured with catastrophe clauses that release funds automatically when schools close, and those clauses sit in enforceable contracts under local law. Moreover, port authorities can deny sailing clearance to vessels that fail culture payments, which turns compliance into a hard operational gate.
Affirmative. Keep the mic and press an attack.
New pressure point. Government capacity in remote regions is thin, so a hybrid model that funds civil society monitors and scholarships fills a gap law alone cannot reach. We propose a multilingual radio service paid by the levy, broadcasting safety and culture content, which builds resilience that statutes alone cannot deliver in storms.
Negative. Your turn to guard.
A hybrid without a binding spine invites cherry picking, so set the levy and statute and let the code live as a supplement, not as the main pillar. If ports deny clearance, that authority must rest on law, not on a club rule taped to a clipboard, otherwise chaos follows in contested waters.
Affirmative. Assemble a duo and take a clean run.
Leader again, and we propose a port-state compact where agencies adopt the code as a recognized standard, which converts voluntary rules into official practice quickly.
Support here, and we draft a template order that any authority can issue within weeks, referencing the code for specifics, which gives legal teeth without legislative delay.
By nesting the code inside administrative orders, we gain enforceability and keep the update speed that Arctic operations demand.
The compact also aligns charterers, insurers, and ports, so free riders find no easy harbor, which cures the negative's chief worry.
Negative bring a pair and swing back.
Lead for the negative. And administrative orders still rely on public law, which is precisely our point, because the sovereign must set duties, not the sector.
Support lands the blow, and once you admit law must hold the frame, the debate becomes how strong the statutes are, not how pretty the dashboards look.
We want mandated levies with floors indexed to inflation, protected line items for teacher salaries, and court-monitored community consent.
We also want whistleblower shields and public data rooms, because secrets grow in the shade of private agreements.
Affirmative. Defend with an answer and a pointed question.
Answer first. And yes, the sovereign holds the frame, which is why our model drafts the specifics so governments can adopt them, without reinventing the wheel.
Pointed question follows. And if you need 5 years for perfect laws, do you accept 5 graduating classes with no language teachers in the meantime?
We shorten that gap by funding now under private order and binding contracts, then hand the blueprint to regulators to codify in phases.
And when your statutes lag, our code keeps the lights on in classrooms that cannot wait for page numbers.
Negative. Finish this stretch with defense that names the soft spot.
Answering cleanly, if your private contracts fail, communities must sue parties with deeper pockets and better lawyers, which drains energy and time.
Here is your soft spot. Your model still trusts corporate willpower during commodity shocks, and history is clear that willpower is the first budget to be cut.
Put culture obligations into concessions and shipping licenses with automatic penalties, and companies will plan for them, just like ice fees and pilotage.
Until then, your good intentions are postcards in a gale, charming to read and easy to lose.
We stay with the structure and keep voices moving, so affirmative one-striker steps up.
The negative keeps saying law or bust, yet mixed governance wins in practice, because standards like safety codes started private and became official in due time. Education funding can be prepaid across seasons, which reduces shock risk, and insurers can require that reserve as a condition of coverage. If you want bite, we staple performance bonds to permits, which pay out to culture boards on breach, and bonds are law-backed instruments.
Negative. Your single defender holds this line.
Performance bonds prove our case that public authority must set triggers and payouts, so cut to the chase and legislate the duty instead of outsourcing justice to brokers. When boards depend on industry money, blind spots form, so independence requires public budgets that no board vote can slash.
Negative. Keep the mic and deliver an attack.
The Arctic is no place for half measures, because once a language goes silent, the silence is permanent, so only permanent law matches the stakes. Your model trusts carrots and gentle nudges, yet poachers and polluters respond to fines, seizures, and suspensions, not to polite reminders.
Affirmative. Reply with one shield.
Suspensions already happen through port-state powers, and our template order gives officials a ready-made checklist for culture as well as safety. By designing the checklist with communities, we make sure it checks what actually matters, which is a smarter use of public authority.
Now negative. Build a duo and push.
Lead here, and we challenge your reliance on industry boards to decide eligibility, because capture is not a risk, it is a pattern.
Support adds texture, and when money flows through private pipes, critics and whistleblowers face retaliation that only law can shield them from.
Set up a sovereign culture trust, funded by mandatory levies, governed with community majorities, and audited by a national office.
Your code can consult this trust, but it cannot replace it, because the fox should never design the fence all by itself.
Affirmative. Answer with two voices and keep it disciplined.
Leader returns, and our fence has checkers that are not foxes, including outside auditors, port authorities, charterers, and insurers with their own teeth.
Support lands the follow-through, and the trust you want can coexist with our code, but the code gets money moving now and raises the floor while laws catch up.
We add a culture continuity clause that funds multi-year teacher contracts regardless of freight cycles, paid from pre-funded reserves.
We also require bilingual safety and community bulletins, which put language in daily life, not only in ceremonies and classrooms.
Negative bench, defend with answers and a little provocation.
Answering, your reserves depend on past profits, but justice cannot depend on yesterday's commodity prices, which is why statutory flaws matter.
Provocation incoming. If reputations are enough, would you accept reputational penalties for oil spills instead of cleanup orders and fines?
Your dashboard miracle still lacks subpoena power, and without it, clever accounting hides failures in footnotes.
So tell us plainly, will you support turning your code into binding license conditions with penalties, or is this a boutique showpiece for conference stages?
Affirmative. Defend now with responses and a precise weakness call-out.
Response first, and yes, we support incorporation of code provisions into license conditions as agencies adopt them, because we designed them for that path.
Weakness call-out. Your plan relies on fast legislation and robust rural enforcement that rarely materialize, which risks 5 lost years and 5 quiet cohorts.
We bridge that risk by starting immediately under contract while aligning every port and insurer to the same scoreboard that regulators can later bless.
We also build youth apprenticeships for culture liaisons aboard ships, which plants capacity where enforcement is thin and hope is needed.
We are entering the heart of the round, so judges keep notes, teams keep it clean, and audiences keep breathing. Before we sprint to the finish, are there new angles or unsaid lines that must be aired? We open a free exchange, short strikes, hard evidence, and no personal digs.
Our code forces culture checks before sales turn and drills start, which means prevention beats apology.
Prevention without power is a poster on a wall, because only law can stop the engine when profits scream go.
Port compacts convert our standard into a clearance gate, so the engine stays cold until culture payments clear.
Compacts still flow from government signatures, so skip the masquerade and write those duties into statute first.
Statutes take years and swing with elections, while a standing code rides across cycles and keeps teachers paid on time.
Teachers need pay they can sue for, not pay they can only hope for. So tie salaries to legal earmarks with penalties for delay.
We escrow 2 seasons of lessons in advance and lock the account behind community co-signatures, which gives teachers both certainty and dignity.
When storms cut revenue, your escrow dries next year. But a statutory floor keeps classrooms open when markets panic.
We built catastrophe clauses that refill reserves automatically from insurance settlements and charterer bonds, which stabilizes the school year.
Insurance pays for insured losses, not cultural debt, so you still need a sovereign backstop that no broker can dodge.
Our template order lets authorities deny departure to vessels that miss cultural obligations, which makes dodging a losing game.
Template orders are not acts of Congress, so they can be revoked by a new boss with a new memo and a new shrug.
A multi-port compact hedges that risk, because 5 aligned harbors beat 1 memo and keep non-compliant ships boxed in.
5 aligned harbors still need 1 legal rule that bites, not 5 polite invitations to play nice.
Bite comes from market gates as well, because insurers, charterers, and buyers blacklist code violators faster than courts schedule hearings.
Blacklists fade when prices spike, but statutes do not blush during booms, so the floor stays firm when temptation rises.
Then, let statutes adopt our chapters by reference while we run them now, because the perfect is not a pass to delay the good.
We can walk and chew gum, so push emergency legislation today and stop pretending soft power can hold back hard steel.
Emergency bills without drafts stall, which is why our chapters give lawmakers a ready script to ink tomorrow morning.
Your script still puts corporations in the author seat, and history says authors write themselves the happiest endings.
The Culture Board wields a community veto over cultural clauses, and that veto lives in contracts enforceable under local law.
Contracts cost money to litigate and time to win, but public regulators can stop a ship with a single order and a badge.
Badges love checklists built by practitioners, and our code is the checklist that turns good intentions into drills, and drills into habits.
Habits drift without watchdogs, so we want whistleblower shields, court oversight, and data rooms the public can search at will.
We published a real-time dashboard and community hotline with guaranteed response times, and penalties for silence baked into member dues.
Dashboards without subpoena power are curated theater, which plays well for investors and poorly for truth.
Subpoenas can point to a system already running, whereas the absence of a system gives cover for inaction and hand-wringing.
Running systems that are optional are also optional to quit, so set duties in licenses and do not rely on loyalty oaths.
Licenses referencing our code remove optionality and keep updates nimble, because agencies can adjust by notice while lawmaking sleeps.
Adjust by notice is precisely the danger, as rights should not wobble with administrative moods or budget cycles.
Rights are anchored, and operations can still learn, so we lock principles while tuning procedures with seasonal evidence.
Your seasonal evidence will always bend to costs when winter bites, so give communities remedies they can count on when phones go dark.
Remedies must be paired with routines, and only daily routines prevent harm that remedies arrive too late to heal.
Daily routines are great, but the spine should be law, not a logo, because bones matter more than branding.
Call it a spine or a brace, yet our brace keeps the body moving until the hospital finishes the surgery.
We throttle back the heat, and I ask the affirmative for a final case in 2 voices, one to sort facts and one to persuade.
Here is the ledger. The Arctic is changing fast, public capacity is thin, and cultural loss is irreversible, so speed and reliability are non-negotiable. We offered a permanent industry code with levies per ton and seat, escrowed funds for multi-year teacher pay, and a culture board with community veto power. We tied compliance to port clearance, insurer preferences, charterer clauses, and buyer mandates, creating a wall of incentives and a map of consequences. We drafted template orders, so agencies can adopt the code by reference tomorrow, which grants enforceability without waiting on full legislation. We built catastrophe clauses, performance bonds, and real-time dashboards with response guarantees, so shocks do not shutter classrooms or erase voices. This is not charity. It is operational risk management that prevents conflict, shortens delays, and protects reputation and capital across seasons.
Judges, you asked for bite, and we showed port gates, bond triggers, escrow co-signatures, and insurer pressure, which together bite faster than court calendars. You asked about free riders, and we fenced them out through linked gates where ports, charterers, and insurers converge on one standard. You asked who writes the rules, and we placed Indigenous representatives with voting power and stop authority over cultural chapters. You asked about the next school term, and our prepaid escrow pays the teachers next spring without waiting for an election or a committee hearing. If law strengthens tomorrow, our framework becomes the detail and the dashboard that law will use, but if law delays, our framework saves time, trust, and words today. Vote for a plan that starts protecting language now and still welcomes stronger statutes as they come, because both lanes can run and the children cannot wait.
Progressives, same format, one to marshal facts and one to win hearts and heads.
The record shows that voluntary regimes fail under stress, that capture corrodes clubs, and that communities win relief faster under public authority with penalties. We argued for statutory levies indexed to inflation, protected lines for teacher salaries, license conditions with automatic suspensions, and court-monitored consent. We asked for whistleblower shields, open data rooms, and sovereign culture trusts with community majorities, because independence requires distance from paymasters. We warned that administrative orders can flip with a new memo, that dashboards without subpoena power can be curated, and that reputational markets blink in a boom. We concede that templates can help legislators, yet templates do not replace the law, and rights should never ride on goodwill or quarterly returns.
Judges, this is about permanence, because a language once silenced does not file an appeal, and only binding law carries that gravity. The other side did good work sketching procedures, but procedures without sovereignty are stage props in a storm. They promise escrows and bonds, yet every valve and switch they cite ultimately depends on public authority to force the payout when push comes to shove. Choose the architecture that centers courts, statutes, and enforceable licenses, and let industry assist, innovate, and comply within that frame. Vote negative, not to spite the code, but to anchor culture protection where it belongs, in law that outlasts prices, bosses, and branding.
Judges, you have the mic for closing evaluations, same order as before. Praise where it is due, and then deliver your verdict.
Both teams brought rare specificity, with the affirmative shining on operational gates and the negative relentless on enforceability under duress. The decisive moment for me was when the affirmative agreed to fold code chapters into license conditions and showed ready-to-sign templates for port orders. That hybrid gives me speed tomorrow and a runway to statute without empty months, so I vote affirmative by a whisker.
I value plans that work on Monday morning, and the affirmative offered checklists, escrow mechanics, and insurer levers that feel deployable now. The negative case for law is strong and principled, but I still worry about lag and rural enforcement gaps that a code can help fill. I vote affirmative, expecting regulators to codify the best bits swiftly, while the code keeps the ice season on a safer track.
I loved the engineering of incentives, yet I will not trade courts for dashboards when rights hang in the balance. The negative gave me a spine of statutes and remedies, and I want bones before I try on braces, so I vote negative. Both of you, keep collaborating because your mix could actually save classrooms while the law catches up.
By a 2-to-1 decision, tonight's winner is the conservative team. Congratulations to the winners, and respect to the progressives for a ferocious and thoughtful fight.
Thank you for the trust, and we will publish our template orders and escrow models so ports and communities can use them without delay.
We dedicate this win to the teachers and elders who keep words alive, and we invite our opponents to help draft the license language tomorrow.
We salute the winners, and we will push the legislative pathway hard because the code deserves a legal backbone that no market can shake.
Good debate sharpens policy, and we leave resolve to turn these promises into statutes that protect voices in every season.
Our thanks to both teams for their courage and clarity, and to the judges for their steady minds. We are grateful to everyone who stayed with us to the final bell, and your attention powers these conversations. If you like this debate, please hit like, subscribe to the channel, and drop your thoughts in the comments. You can support the channel using the QR code on the screen or the link in the description, and every bit helps us build better shows. The description also features links to other works from totally different series, so explore and find your next favorite. Thank you for watching, take care out there, and we will see you next time on Debate Combats.